You know, sometimes you just need to record things at a different angle. And that's what we did today. Trying it out, I actually like it, so let's talk about that on A Slice of Pie, the semi-weekly news-ish show that we do on this channel, and holy cow am I a ball of energy right now. Alright, let's talk on a couple things about this channel. For one, we're shooting at a different angle than normal, and it's like, I've got so much room to like move around, it's really weird. It might be contributing a little bit to my energy levels being a little bit higher because I'm not confined as tightly. Also, you get to see all my nerd shit. All my things that I've collected, like FX processor tin. This is back when they actually made like tins for processors. Kind of cool. Let's put that back. I also have my Ryzen 7 box, the MSI cooler that we pulled off of our 5700 XT that is inside that computer. That is also a thing you should watch if you haven't watched it. So I need to calm down. Alright, so channel stuff. You may have just noticed there's a new intro on this video, and that video intro thing that I created, animation I guess you could call it, is going to actually be deployed across the channel on every video uploaded from this date forward, and until I change it, presumably it will be there indefinitely. And the reason for that is because I really have been wanting to do something like this where we unify the channel's branding into one thing. I know you guys know the pie, you know the character, and it's been around since the start of this channel for the most part. But essentially, I just wanted to create something that I can put in front of my content that's specifically like, yeah, this is my video. Because I don't know, I like that style. I'm weird, I'm particular. Speaking of style, if you haven't actually watched my video on the Nova build, you may have noticed that I actually did a little bit of extra work when it came to timing music, editing, and doing all that crazy stuff because I actually tried to. I actually went through the effort of actually mastering and editing a lot more than I normally do, to the point that the video is actually currently my favorite video on the channel to watch. Which is a really good thing for me personally because I thought I had plateaued, but no, there's definitely a lot more for me to grow and a lot more for me to do. So that's my Supernova build. It's the final build vlog. It is awesome and I like it. And that's actually half the reason why the video that was gonna come out on Wednesday did not come out on Wednesday, because I ended up actually needing more time. I'm doing a review on the 5700 XT that is currently inside that PC. The A-roll is edited and we're adding B-roll, but then I gotta do graphs and all this stuff that I don't normally do or haven't done, so I don't have hard assets for it. So essentially, yeah, I have a lot of work to do still on it, and hopefully I can get it out between Tuesday and Wednesday of next week. Other than that, we also have a video about the Lian Li 011 Dynamic and the distro plate that we're going to be doing, but I haven't even started editing that because I haven't finished the 5700 XT review. And then there's also a side video that I'm working on where I'm going to poke GamerGuts' computer, the one that's literally right next to mine in that area, and we're just gonna poke it and prod it until we can figure out what's wrong with it, because every time she opens up Netflix, it just crashes. So I'm going to do my best to figure it out. I'm gonna make an entire video dedicated to just troubleshooting, because I think a lot of people don't necessarily know how to troubleshoot, and I actually am very good at it. I'm horrible at explaining what I'm doing, so hopefully I will be able to slow myself down enough to actually tell you guys what content what is the problem, how to fix it, and then like we have some like general maintenance stuff. It's gonna be actually a pretty fun video, very educational, so get subscribed if you're not already for that. But that is just all of the stuff that's going on here. Let's talk about the tech news and its insanity over the last week. You may have woken up today to an announcement of the 64-core Threadripper processor being out now. Now, AMD did kind of surprise launch this on us, but they handed it out to a couple different people. Unbox, Therapy, and Linus Tech Tips are 2 channels that have actually uploaded videos thus far. So far I haven't seen anything from Gamers Nexus, Jay's 2 Cents, Whit, or Paul's Hardware. Now that may be that they're kind of behind on the reviews, or that AMD gave them these products with like very little warning. Funny thing is though, the 2 channels I just mentioned are outside of the United States, so maybe that had something to do with it, and maybe they gave them a little bit more time. Digressing a little bit, it looks impressive. It performs as impressively as a normal Threadripper with even just a lot more threads and a lot more cores. And to help promote it, AMD actually did an interview with Red Video Cameras, who were using it inside their studio, and was like, yeah, no, this thing can actually edit Red 4K RAW, which is incredible because if I'm not mistaken, Linus did like 3 videos on editing 4K RAW and having difficulty with it because of how intense the Red Cinema cameras are when it comes to video recording. Either way, it's actually really, really awesome that this product exists. That being said, you don't really need 64 cores, especially not for gaming. And for a channel like mine, we would never be able to utilize it. I'm still recording at 1080p. I want to get our first 4K camera, but it's not going to be like super fancy 4K. It's actually going to be, it's a Canon. It's the mirrorless Canon. It looks pretty nice. I'm not going to deny that the 4K is going to be cool, but it's not necessarily going to completely replace 1080p in our channel because we don't have a budget big enough to afford 4K, and I definitely don't have a budget big enough to afford a $4,000 processor to edit 8K. So either way, cool product, a little overkill, and honestly, like, Intel is pretty much dead right now at this price point. Like, they're not even competing. AMD is currently competing against server processors with something that's technically not even a server part. So yeah, there are some limitations that they did put on it because their epic processors that are 64 cores have to exist for a reason. So AMD did put some limitations on RAM and all that stuff. Either way, cool product that it exists. Happy it's out now. Don't know how I would use one, but that being said, can't say I won't ever use a 64 core processor because, I mean, when I was born, 2 cores was extreme. So, you know, that's just how the tech works. The coronavirus is actually delaying a lot of tech products and a lot of tech releases. We've had word that the PS5 and the Xbox Series X might actually get delayed entirely due to the fact that the Chinese factories that would be producing the chips are not currently operating, as everything is sort of in a bit of stasis as China tries to weed out this virus. That being said, something we do know for a fact that is going to have problems is the Nintendo Switch. Production of the Nintendo Switch in China is all but going to slow production down to a complete halt. Luckily, Nintendo does have a couple of factories outside of China that they can still make a couple of Switches, but it will cause issues in the meantime for supply, and supply might become a very big issue as Animal Crossing is the next big driving game, and that comes out next month. Speaking of the Nintendo Switch, Nintendo's president has actually come out and said, hey, that Switch Pro thing that you guys keep getting excited for, it doesn't exist. It's not happening. We're not making it. We're just sticking with the normal Switch. This comes as a bit of a surprise and also not as a surprise because realistically, NVIDIA would have to have made a new Tegra chip for them to even consider it. Thinking about how the Nintendo Switch is actually architecturally made, it's impossible for them to switch from one to another and then keep compatibility. Speaking of NVIDIA and Tegra, GeForce Now is officially out. GeForce Now is NVIDIA's game streaming service. It requires a NVIDIA graphics card, and that's about it. You can pretty much stream it on any NVIDIA graphics card, and it just works. It works just as well as any other game streaming service, but it only comes at a cost of $5 a month for the premium tier. Any game you buy with GeForce Now is actually your game, meaning unlike Stadia where you have to at least have the service, you don't necessarily have to have the service after you buy the game. In fact, you can install the games locally if you want to. Also, you don't have to pay anything if you honestly just don't want to, you can play a set number of time and sessions. Now, of course, this is subject to change as this is a new product being launched, and of course it's trying to take out Stadia, which realistically is a fairly low bar to hit. On that graphics card news though, we do have a couple of inklings that Big Navi is on the way. Big Navi, as it's been dubbed, or the 2080 Ti killer, as the community is hoping that it will be, is actually most likely going to be coming out shortly. We've got some filings that would imply that the card is gearing up for launch. Now, AMD probably will not launch it until, I'm going to say, May or June, but the idea that this card could be around the corner is quite exciting. That being said, as excited as I am for this card, I am a little worried about pricing. It could slot into a $500 slot, but I highly doubt it, as if it's going against the 2080 Ti, which is a $1,000 part, I would expect probably more along the $700 range. That being said, they could possibly actually be releasing a whole line of cards, which if they were to do, they'd probably start at the top and work their way down. I don't know. Either way, I'm not doing anything anytime soon, as getting this GPU out, although not as difficult as it was in my other system, is still a lot of effort, and I still have to buy another water block if I'm going to add or change a GPU in there. The EU has spoken, and they have voted for one universal charger type for all smartphones. Now, the EU is not an insignificant market, even without Britain in it. Therefore, Apple might actually be forced to have to change their charging port. Now, some have actually joked and said, well, they're already talking about ditching all ports altogether, so that's just what they're gonna do, and we're going to have to charge our iPhones at a blisteringly slow speed. Luckily, I don't own an iPhone, and because of that, I guess I really don't care that much. USB-C is actually pretty awesome, and unlike micro B, is less prone to breaking, and honestly, even phones that I've had issues with, like this one's a Motorola, where the USB-C port, like, it just won't lock anymore. I can still charge it, it just takes a bit of finagling to do. This one does have wireless charging, and the wireless charging feature is just underwhelming, so I don't really see how we are going to make a wireless charging phone that can charge within a good night's rest, maybe? I honestly don't know. Apple would either have to make a massive battery to compensate for no charging ports, or really high voltages through that wireless charger. I guess while we're talking about smartphones, we should probably talk about an interesting experiment that an artist did. He got together 100 smartphones, opened up either, I think it was either Waze or one of those other traffic apps, and caused a traffic jam with a cart. It was a virtual traffic jam, of course, it wasn't a real thing. He just walked down the street causing a virtual traffic jam. Now, anybody who was using Waze, for example, would have seen a red line exactly where this cart was, but then driving through it would have seen no traffic. This does kind of highlight a vulnerability in the whole traffic app system. That being said, how many people have 100 smartphones that they can use to essentially ruin somebody else's commute? Now, we did report last week on the 5600 XT and how performance-wise it's actually very, very close to a 2060. Unfortunately, though, that is not all of them, and it has come out that some of these cards are actually not going to be able to overclock to the same level as the AMD updated BIOS. This has sort of caused a lot of confusion. You see, I jokingly said that they should have just called this like the 5650 XT or something like that, and that would have been fine, but at this point it looks like very few cards are out of the box going to be capable of hitting all of the specs. In fact, there are now 3 different variants, ones that can hit the overclock, ones that can hit the memory overclock, ones that cannot hit either, and those that can hit one or the other. Well, actually, so it would be overclock, memory overclock, both, and then not. So four different cards with different levels of performance. This is kind of a problem because as somebody who overclocks and tweaks and does all this stuff, I would kind of want to be on the higher end of that performance, put a water block on it, make it like nice and cool. That being said, I have my own issues with Navi that are going to be discussed in the 5700 XT review, mainly due to some really horrendous drivers and some bugs that have actually caused a significant issue with my system. Gigabyte, wow, Gigabyte did a oopsie here. They may have accidentally leaked the B55 motherboards. B550, 550, yeah, I guess it would be a 550. The B550 motherboards, mainly because they filed with the ECC, and actually there are quite a few of them. The B550 motherboards are actually going to be the lower end versions of the X570 motherboards that have been out for almost a year at this point. Essentially, they're going to be a little bit cheaper, mainly when motherboards launch, they launch in those two tiers. In fact, actually, if you've looked at X570 motherboards, you may have noticed some what should have been B550 motherboards appearing in those stacks. That being said, there are quite a few motherboards. It looks like they're going to be supporting it quite heavily. And yeah, honestly, we haven't seen them yet. We don't know how they look, but we do have product names and we can kind of extrapolate that data based off of their names alone. And then we're going to wrap up with one thing for all of you who want that nice, clean, white build. Gigabyte also announced and revealed white RAM, and it looks really good. Like, not very gamery, it looks pretty industrial. So if you're doing an all-white, non-RGB build, I would recommend those because it looks just so cool. It does look good. Personally though, my style is, you know, green, purple, black, RGB puke everywhere. So with that, I am gonna wrap up. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, you can leave a like, comment, subscribe. Tell me what I'm doing in the comments that you like. Tell me what I'm not doing that you don't like, because I would like to improve. So thank you guys again. Wolfie.